So, this is Australia and this is New Zealand. Many people heard about project of their unification or asked themselves why didn't those two almost similar countries united. But most of you didn't hear about Australasian great project named Australasia. This project wasn't only about the unification of Australia and New Zealand. Hell no, it's too boring. This project would consist a ton of former British colonies and it would look so epic. But let's start from the basic things to talk about Australasia. First of all, the creation of Australian Commonwealth. You see, before the year 1901, Australia didn't exist at all. Australian continent consisted of 6 different colonies who really liked each other. Those colonies were Western Australia, Southern Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. And they were actually living pretty good being separated from each other. But it is the beginning of the 20th century, new colonial era, and one country has appeared in the region with their own colonies. Yeah, we're talking about German Empire. And because of the threats of the Germans and some other specific movements that had happened in the different colonies to unite Australia, it finally happened in 1901. But this unification wasn't as simple as you might thought. At first, Australia wanted to see not only Australian continent in their Commonwealth. Australian dream was way bigger than just Australia. Their main goal was to unite the whole Australasian land under the rule of kangaroo. I guess that the best way will be to tell you about each territory on its own. So let's start. Our first victim is going to be New Zealand, or Kiwi, because it was the main goal of the Australasian unification. And without having New Zealand as a part of Australian Federation or Commonwealth, we can't talk about Australasia at all. So, for a great amount of times, with different good suggestions, Australia tried to invite New Zealand to join them. Australians have even mentioned them in their constitution in 1901, where they should become 7th and 8th states of the Commonwealth. Moreover, since that time New Zealand has option to join Australia at any moment. Even now they can do it, but they actually don't really want to. If we look at the Kiwi country in 1901, we see that they were a successful colony on their own. They didn't have any racial problems as Australia did. Whites and Maoris, they are a local Polynesian population, were living pretty good together and really liked each other. Meanwhile, Australia reminds me more of South African Union, with the larger amount of whites than in the South Africa. Australia rejected racist laws only in 1975, but Australians still has problem with the local population. Plus, one of the main difference between kangaroo and kiwi is trade. You see, even before the unification, the main trade partners of the different Australian states were different Australian states. Meanwhile, main trade partner of New Zealand was Great Britain. So kiwi and kangaroo didn't have that connection to be not just in the friend zone, but to finally become a family. Next region which Australia wanted to grab was Melanesia. Technically, they have appeared in this region for a few times. First, when they split Papua New Guinea with Germany, and the second time was when they have annexed German colonies in Papua New Guinea. But this piece of land was a huge problem for Australia. First, it was a banana republic. They didn't produce anything except food, and their geography is kinda horrible. To understand that, just look at this map. We have high mountains, which divide country in 2 parts, and that's not good for the logistics. The second thing is population. In 1963, their population was around 2 million people, and only 25,000 of them were not natives. So imagine this proportion: 1% of Europeans and other people to 99% of locals. And that scene doesn't match with idea of white Australia at all. And it was one of the main reasons why Papua New Guinea didn't become a rightful part of Australia and was just a piece of land that was controlled by the government of the Commonwealth. So you understand that we have no reasons to talk about Indonesian part of the island, because it had the same situation as the eastern part of the island. And I'm sure that Australians didn't want to have any problems with the Indonesian government. So we can say that that part of the Australasian project in which they should annex the whole island of New Guinea has failed. So forget about New Guinea. Next up is East Timor. So after the Portuguese decolonization in 1974, they had a movement of the local Chinese community which wanted to unite with Australia, because they were afraid of being annexed by Indonesia. But in the 1975, you see, Australia rejected any ideas of annexing East Timor. In the same year, they gave independence to the Papua New Guinea and rejected their racial laws. So at that time, Commonwealth didn't see any reasons for gaining new lands, and they really forgot about the Australasian project at that time. Next bro is really famous because he became popular because of his water, and Husser made a great video about this tiny country. Check this video on his channel. But in our case, Fiji is important too, because Australia tried to annex it too. It was made in 1870s by the Victoria's state, but Fiji rejected it because of the United Kingdom. Fiji was an important strategical place for the British Empire, and they couldn't give this piece of land to one of their huge colonies. Of course, ideas of the Australasian unification has point, especially when we see a huge players like China, who wants to puppet all of those small countries in the Pacific Ocean and get rid of Australia as one of the major allies of the United States in the Southern Hemisphere. In fact, Australia is the United States of the Western Hemisphere, and New Zealand is some kind of Canada here. Nowadays there are not a lot of reasons to gain new lands, especially for Australia, which has a lot of lands that are uninhabited. But some kind of strategic alliance against China or other countries, which includes Australasian region, would be a pretty cool scene. Don't live in the past and always keep up with the time.